I didn't go looking for her. Honestly, I wasn't looking for anything, unless you count the space to breathe as a destination. After the divorce, after packing up the apartment and deleting our names from each other's lives, one shared account at a time, I took to the road. I told myself it was for clarity. But really, I just wanted to disappear for a while. I drove until the familiar fell away, until my phone lost service and my thoughts lost urgency. That's how I found myself in a town called East Haven. It wasn't on my itinerary, mostly because I didn't have one. A crooked "Welcome to East Haven" sign creaked in the wind, and the gas station on the corner looked like it hadn't changed since the 70s. I stopped because the engine light blinked on, and I needed coffee more than I needed reasons to keep going. I didn't know it yet, but my life had just cracked open, and light was about to pour in. There's a bookstore on Main Street. Cedar and Sage, the sign reads in faded hand-painted letters. It was tucked between a diner and a shop that only seemed to sell wind chimes, the kind of place you'd miss if you weren't paying attention. But something about it, maybe the ivy climbing up the brick or the blue door that looked like it had 100 stories of its own, pulled me in. And that's where I met her. She was perched on a ladder, shelving books on the top tier like she belonged in some quiet, whimsical movie. Hair pinned loosely at the back of her head, wisps falling free, a soft blue dress, bare feet. There was a record playing in the background, some old jazz tune, the kind that makes you want to slow dance in a kitchen with the lights low. She didn't see me at first, but I saw her. And for a moment, the world narrowed, like someone had dimmed the background noise and sharpened the frame. "Looking for anything in particular?" she asked, turning halfway, a smile in her voice before it reached her lips. I fumbled. "Just browsing." She laughed, not unkindly. "That's the best kind." She came down the ladder with the kind of grace that doesn't ask for attention. "I'm Clara," she said, brushing a smudge of dust off her skirt. "Eli," I replied. We shook hands. Her fingers were ink-stained, soft, the kind of hands that held stories. I didn't mean to stay in East Haven, but something about the town and her bookstore and the way Clara moved through the world like it wasn't something to conquer, but to love gently, kept me there. At first, it was just a day or two. Then, a week. I found a room above the bakery, one that smelled like cinnamon and memory, and offered to help Clara reorganize the shop in exchange for books and coffee. She agreed with a smile that curled at the edges. We fell into a rhythm. Mornings were for cataloging old novels and listening to her hum while dusting shelves. Afternoons held long, meandering conversations about literature, about why she hated Hemingway, about how she once tried to live in Paris but came back because she missed thunderstorms in East Haven. Evenings, we'd lock up the store and walk by the river, saying less but meaning more. It wasn't fireworks, it was something quieter, steadier, the kind of feeling that doesn't burn you, it warms you. Still, I hesitated, because the truth is, I was afraid. You see, love hadn't been kind to me lately. My marriage had ended not in fire, but in slow, silent erosion. We were good at making breakfast, but bad at making space. Somewhere between careers and calendar reminders, we lost each other. By the time we admitted it, we were already gone. And I carried that failure with me, like a stone in my chest. So when Clara laughed and touched my arm or leaned a little closer during a quiet part of a song, something inside me recoiled. Not because I didn't want it, but because I did. And that scared the hell out of me. I didn't know how to trust myself with something beautiful anymore. One night, she invited me to the local summer fair. It was held in a meadow at the edge of town, strung with paper lanterns and filled with the scent of kettle corn and cut grass. There was a small stage where a folk band played songs you couldn't help but tap your foot to. We didn't speak much that night, just wandered between booths, sharing caramel apples and laughing at poorly made pottery. At one point, we stood near the river, the water catching the light in soft golds and blues. "I like it here," I said quietly. She glanced at me, thoughtful. "But you're leaving eventually, aren't you?" I hesitated. "Probably." She nodded, as if she already knew. Most people do. I wanted to say something, anything that would make her believe I was different, but I didn't know if I was. Instead, I said, "I'm trying to figure out who I am without all the things I used to be." She looked at me then, really looked, and said something I'll never forget. Maybe you're not lost. Maybe you're just becoming. Days passed. We grew closer in the way people do when they let themselves be seen. She told me about her father who died when she was 19, about the year she stopped reading because everything felt too sharp, about the first boy who broke her heart and how she still keeps the letter he wrote her, not because she loves him, but because it reminds her she survived. I told her things I hadn't told anyone, about how I sometimes felt like a ghost in my own life, about the guilt I carried for giving up, about how I used to write poems in college and stopped because someone once told me they weren't any good. She didn't try to fix me. She just listened, the kind of listening that makes you feel holy. One night, we sat on the floor of the bookstore after hours, surrounded by stacks of old books and half-drunk tea. The storm outside rattled the windows, but we were cocooned in warm light. "Can I read you something?" I asked. She nodded. I pulled a crumpled page from my notebook, a poem I'd written that morning. It was about the river and her. When I finished, there was silence. Then, "You should keep writing." She didn't say it like a compliment. She said it like a truth, and I believed her. It wasn't planned. We were walking back from the diner, and it had started to drizzle. She laughed and danced in the rain, arms outstretched, eyes closed. "Come on, Eli," she called, spinning. I stood still, watching her. My heart felt like it didn't know how to beat the way it used to. When she looked back at me, her face lit by streetlight and rain, I stepped forward, took her face in my hands, and kissed her. She didn't pull away. She leaned in, and I swear I tasted every chapter we hadn't written yet. The thing about falling in love after breaking apart is that joy feels like a risk. Every moment with her was colored by the question, can this be real? But love doesn't wait for certainty. It asks only for courage. So I stayed, not just in the town, but in the moments. I let myself fall, one soft second at a time. We cooked breakfast in her tiny kitchen and danced to Nina Simone in our socks. We argued about which Bronte sister wrote the best book and made up before the kettle boiled. We walked through forests in silence and held each other like the world wasn't burning. I stopped running and started writing again. Not for escape, but for expression, for healing, for her. But of course, life doesn't pause just because you found something worth keeping. One morning I got a call. A job offer in Portland, a writing fellowship, the kind I'd once dreamed of, back when I still believed in dreams, and I didn't know what to do. When I told her, Clara was quiet. "That's wonderful," she said. But her eyes said something else. "I don't want to lose this," I told her. "You won't," she said. "Not if it's real." I looked at her, this woman who taught me how to feel again, and wanted to ask her to come with me. But I didn't. Because part of love is not asking someone to shrink for your story. And she belonged here, in her bookstore, in this town where the wind told secrets through trees. We spent our last night together at the river, where it all began. We didn't say much, just sat side by side, our fingers tangled, our hearts heavy but full. "I'll write you," I said. She smiled, bittersweet. "Then I'll write back." Before I left the next morning, she gave me a small leather journal. Inside the front cover, she'd written, "For all the things we never said out loud." I kissed her at the doorstep. Not goodbye, just until. That was a year ago. I live in Portland now, I write. The fellowship turned into a book deal. On paper, things look good, but what I carry with me isn't made of paper. It's made of rainy bookstore nights, of river walks, of blue dresses and jazz records, of a woman who taught me that healing doesn't mean going back. It means moving forward, whole in new ways. We still write letters. Not every day. Sometimes weeks pass. But when her envelope arrives, my hands tremble the same way they did when I first held hers. She still signs them, "Yours, Clara." And I still end mine, "For always, Eli." People ask me if I believe in soulmates. I tell them this: sometimes love doesn't look like forever in one place. Sometimes it looks like two people who meet at just the right moment when they both need a little saving, who show each other a version of themselves they'd forgotten. And sometimes that's enough. Sometimes that's everything.